Hello and welcome to the formation lap of the inaugural round of Apollo Racing Club's IndyCar League here at the Michigan International Speedway on iRacing. So I'm really coming into this league as a newcomer. I started with Apollo Racing Club in early June for the Le Mans endurance race. I've barely done any oval racing and virtually none in IndyCar. We did a practice race last week and I crashed out of that race, pushing too hard, running wide, and hitting the wall. So coming into this race, my goal was just to do the best job that I could to maximize my own driving, my own race management, without worrying too much about what other cars were doing, and just seeing what the result ended up being. So we had a 1-hour practice session before this race. I ended up in the middle of the group on pace, but did better than I was expecting in qualifying. So I am starting this 60-lap race in third position. Here on board with me on the dark red and black number 55 car. Starting just in front in P2 is Andrew in the yellow and green car. Andrew is one of the founders of this league. He's very experienced and knowledgeable when it comes to oval racing, so I didn't have particularly ambitious goals going into this race, or indeed going into this league, as many on the grid are just as experienced and knowledgeable as Andrew. My goal was just to make it to the end and see where I finish after 60 laps and decide what I can improve on for next time. So as we watch the grid filter past, not a huge number of cars starting today's race, so perhaps the end result might be artificially higher than it really would be with a full grid. And as the virtual crowd glitches slightly as the camera passes through them, coming onto the main straight now, pace car pulls in as we start the race. So watching from above my car as the race starts, I get a decent run on the cars in front, maybe a fraction quicker to react to the green flag. I take the inside line, and that's my strategy for the whole first lap. We're not going fast enough that I think the true racing line will make a difference. So I get past Andrew on the inside. Obernour gets a run behind me and uses some slipstream from Bordeaux in the blue car. So again, I'm just going to hold it on the inside, run the shortest possible path through the corner. And I run just a touch wide to take all the space that I have. Obernour backs off, loses a little bit of momentum. He starts to take some slipstream to catch back up, but at the end of the first lap, I am leading the race. And in that moment, I can't believe that that's happened. I was expecting to basically immediately go backwards. So just trying to stay calm with 59 laps still to go in this race. Now looking at this battle with Obernour a couple of corners later, we're basically alongside coming to the end of the back straight, neither of us giving an inch of space, and you can see just how close we run together as we turn in. So looking for my rear left suspension camera, you can see just before we turn in, we come inches apart, close enough to look each other in the eye. As we cut now to lap 10 at the end of the first caution period, this race did have several cautions. We probably spent 15 or 20 laps behind the pace car, so at this stage of the race, lap 10, I did some mental math and figured I wouldn't have enough fuel to make it to the end, even with more pace cars, so trying to keep close enough to Obernour to get his slipstream on the restart, but not so close that I would have to back out getting into the first corner. Coming into turn 1, I am pulling up to him and right on his tail by the end of the corner as I pull alongside, prepared to go for the outside down the back straight. And now Williams coming up from behind, having started P12, so a good effort from him. He's got a good run on the slipstream, so I choose to go high to constrict his line. Again, not giving him any more space than he needs. On the exit of the corner, pulling back down behind Obernour, and he pulls fully onto the apron, onto the white line, as we are fully alongside coming into turn 1. But Obernour's defended the inside. I do what I can to hold it along the outside, but with the better line, he pulls slightly ahead. I keep my foot down. He lifts slightly on the exit, maybe not wanting to run wide into me, so I pull into the lead again. Again, back in a position I never expected to be in, running to the middle of the track, trying to take advantage of the fact that Obernour and Williams are running side by side to not give either of them an advantage. And as we jump to the back straight, we are running 3 wide, as we line up our back wheels with each other's front wheels. We come so close together into the corner, and unfortunately, I make my first mistake of the race, carrying too much speed and running wide and touching the wall. Godso pulling past me, running alongside Starostka, my teammate from the Le Mans endurance race in June. He started P9 in this race, but now instead of sharing a Le Mans prototype, we are fighting for 4th and 5th positions in this race. Coming to turn 1, I keep my foot planted, trying to catch slipstream from Godso and Williams in front. But now at the exit of the corner, they come together. I just barely pull to the left and come inches from a major collision. You can see here from my right front suspension camera, I somehow just barely find my way through that carnage. And at the moment Godso hits the wall and bounces back, I have so little time to react. All I can do is move left and hope that I don't get taken out as collateral damage. From the TV camera, you can see that 3 other cars do get caught up in that accident. So now as we come to lap 17, the end of the caution period after that incident, Oberauer in front, Staroska behind. I've already battled with Oberauer for several laps at this point, so I know that it's going to be so important to get a good start here. So my goal is to get in his slipstream and stay with him through the corner so I can try to get a run down the back straight. Coming into turn 1, I hold station relatively well with him. Not as well as before, so still fully behind him coming out of turn 1. And now Staroska coming from behind with the slipstream. And again, we go 3 wide into the final turn. I've learned my lesson. I'll hold to the outside without running wide and hitting the wall this time. Try to pick up slipstream from Oberauer on the exit. Coming into turn 1, I hope to be clear of Staroska behind. And indeed, with superior momentum, it looks like I will be. So going to try to take the racing line, run low in that corner to try to run at Oberauer. And this time, I do get a slightly better slipstream than last lap. Going to try and hold the inside this time. I do take the lead through the corner. Oberauer gets a good run from behind as we prepare to run fully side by side down the main straight. Crossing the start-finish line, there can't be more than 1/100th of a second between us, but of course plenty of laps still to go in this race. And as we come into turn 1, Oberauer on the inside and slightly ahead as well. All I can do is try again down the back straight, holding the outside line this time around. Knowing that I'm probably not going to get the move done into the final bend, starting to think about my next move, sizing up a good opportunity for an overtake, maybe looking for any weaknesses in Oberauer's driving. But again, on this lap, as we come across the start-finish line, it is another caution, another pace car. As we jump now to lap 23 at the end of this restart period, trying to react as quickly as possible when the green flag drops. After this race, I asked and learned that really I'm supposed to be reacting to whatever the leader does once the pace car comes in. So that's a lesson learned for next time. I got a great run on Oberauer, react much faster to the green flag. Coming into turn 1, definitely going to be ahead and well on the inside. But of course this will give Oberauer the slipstream coming down the back straight. So again, knowing at this point that turn 2 is slightly weak for me, I hold the outside and prepare to fall in behind. So again, my goal is to pick up the slipstream. He defends the inside coming into turn 1, so I'm going to use all of the space on the track available to me, try to run a good line. And we again prepare to go side by side down the back straight and coming into turn 2. So this battle continuing for lap after lap. I go high into turn 2. But really it's too high. I have to blend out of the throttle, giving DuPont some good momentum from behind. DuPont also my teammate at Le Mans in June, but my fight today is with Oberauer. Hoping to go side by side with him one more time. And again, as we come down the back straight, just biding my time. Still more than 2/3 the race distance still to go, so the name of the game here is patience. So again, taking the high line here, but running it too conservative on turn-in, leaving space I don't need to leave, and this gives Williams the momentum as he moves up into P2. So coming down the main straight, I know that with the slipstream, DuPont is probably going to be underneath me as we go into turn 1, so I try to take slipstream from Williams. But again, running unnecessarily high, getting out of the throttle and losing another position. So definitely a point to improve for next time is getting better at only leaving the space that I need to leave when I'm taking the high line, instead of constricting myself to a line that I'm only ever going to have to back out of. So coming onto the main straight now, I have the space to run low, and I pick slipstream up from Oberauer in P1 of all people, having already lost 2 positions since I was really fighting him. Finally finding myself on the inside of a corner here. But not quite close enough. Williams having the space to run low and sit behind Oberauer, and look how close I find myself running with DuPont. I take the racing line out of the corner and leave him a respectable amount of space against the wall. And coming into turn 2 here, again, I don't quite commit enough on turn in, and that allows DuPont to take a better line and make up some ground. I see him coming from behind, and I run low to constrict the inside line that he would want to take, trying to pick up some slipstream from Williams and Overnauer in front. And as we come into turn 1 on lap 28, the leading pair come together. Thankfully, not as much of a plane crash as before, but Overnauer is scraping up against the wall, bleeding his momentum away, which moves me up into P2. But importantly, Williams up in P1 is by himself. He doesn't have the benefit of any slipstream anymore. So I try to do what I can to catch up to him. Can't quite get him through turn 2. And as he comes to the main straight, he turns to go into the pit lane, makes a mess of the pit entry. He must be carrying some damage from his collision with Overnauer, which moves me into the lead again. So for the third time, being in that position I don't expect to be, knowing that DuPont is a ways behind me, so I'm starting to think that this might be a good opportunity to put some laps in clean air, but there's yet another caution from a collision behind. So as we jump to the roll bar camera, lap 31 now, more than half race distance. On this occasion, I do choose to go into the pit lane for tires and fuel. So from here, my strategy is to take this fuel to the end of the race and try to use fresh tires as an advantage to make up positions after the pace car goes back in. And you can see, as I'm going 55 miles an hour down the pit lane, the pack behind the pace car are only going 70 miles an hour, so it's quite a small speed difference. But of course, coming to a stop to put tires on, I fall to the back of the pack. So I'm going to need the advantage of these fresh tires to make up any decent positions. My virtual crew here doing not a bad looking job of changing everything out. I'm impressed by those animations from iRacing. And exiting the pit lane as I remove the limiter and accelerating up to catch the pack, I am in fact the fastest car on the track in first gear, which is a rather odd feeling, but rejoining the track in last place. So coming out of the restart, lap 33, I want to make up as many positions as quickly as I can, again using the advantage of those fresh tires. So getting a good reaction at the green flag, getting a jump on Gorringe and Williams in front. Everyone in front is running the normal racing line coming into this corner, but just like at the start of the race, I don't think we're going fast enough for it to matter. Thompson diving down low, presumably to cover me off. I run to the outside of the corner and make contact with Williams on the outside. So at this moment, it's going through my mind that I've been involved in a collision. I make a mental note of that as something I might need to answer for after the race, but for now, just keep driving. It's done, so nothing I can do about it. Now my mission is to catch back up to the leading 4, and you can just see how much more speed I can carry through the bend with fresher tires, breezing right up to Godso and McCarthy. They run low and high, but I'm more than happy to go through the middle of them because I know that I'll be ahead coming into turn 1. So through turn 1 now, catching up to Starostka, preparing to pull past him, and looking squarely at DuPont ahead in the lead. So it's the battle of the 3 Le Mans teammates for the race lead at this stage. It's great to be running on this grid with them. I know that they're good drivers from sharing a car with them, so it means we can really race each other and not expect too many shenanigans. I don't get a good run through the second bend, but I'm not worried about it. There's plenty of time left in the race. Just trying to catch some slipstream for now. Preparing to take the inside line into turn 1 on DuPont. Again, using my fresh tires to try and take the lead. And even with DuPont diving low, I have enough grip to hold the outside, so coming fully ahead down the back straight. As Starostka pulls up alongside with DuPont, I use the fact that they're alongside to take the middle line on the way in, not giving either of them an obvious target for slipstream. They would have to risk coming together if they want to sit fully behind me. But regardless of that tactic, DuPont gets a great run on me as we come onto the start-finish straight, preparing to go side by side into turn 1. But yet again, we are slowing from a caution from an incident behind, so yet another caution period in this race. So with a moment to breathe, let's take a look back at that collision. So to review, I'm taking the racing line out of the corner, running wide to maximize the exit. Williams dives low on the exit, his front left making contact with my rear right. So initially, looking at his roll bar camera, from his perspective, it does kind of seem like I come out of nowhere and make contact with him, but from a chase camera, if you watch the grooves in the pavement, you can see that he cuts clear across a lane and almost fully into the next lane by the time we make contact. And in comparison to my onboard, way less of a movement relative to the constant radius of the corner. And of course, the racing line is the racing line and is always what people are going to take. So in my view, this is a racing incident. Ultimately, he didn't catch any damage from it. In my opinion, people should always be prepared for others to take the normal racing line. So jumping back to the restart, lap 40, DuPont ahead, Staroska behind. My strategy remaining the same as it was after pitting on lap 31. After all, not much has changed in those 9 laps. I don't necessarily react any faster to the green flag and the green light, but with the slipstream, hoping to pull ahead into T1, which I am able to do. So this is shaping up to be another battle like what I was having with Obernauer at the start, battling lap after lap side by side. So preparing to execute some of the same kind of strategies as before. But yet again, as we pull into turn 2, another caution period. So definitely the story of this race being the number of cautions and how that affected everyone's strategy. So lap 44, I am leading a restart this time. No pit stop needed for me. I am good to go to the end of the race. So trying to react as best I can to the green flag, knowing that I'm giving the slipstream and not taking it. So restarting the race. At the moment, no other cars in the immediate vantage point that we have here, so feeling pretty good coming into turn 1. But of course, who comes up from behind but my old pal Obernauer. And DuPont coming again to put me on the high line, where I don't usually do too well here in turn 2. And indeed I don't. DuPont getting past, as well as McCarthy coming now from behind. And now Williams coming from behind after the contact that we were just reviewing. He gets a good run on me as well. And again, I'm on the high line, leaving space that I don't need to leave, and it's job done for him. So trying to take some slipstream from Williams, now running side by side with DuPont. Coming into turn 2, again using as much track space as I can on entry. I do a slightly better job in that regard of holding a good line against him this time, but really assisted by some amount of slipstream from Williams coming out of that corner. Trying to get a run down the straight, but it's not enough. Now cut to lap 46, a leading pair come together again. Williams and Obernauer come together. So here's my roll bar camera hitting the wall midway through. And as you can see, right as the pit entry starts, they come together. So on board with Obernauer, Williams suddenly diving low. Obernauer just sends spinning around over the grass, narrowly avoiding a huge collision with the water barrels of the pit entry. And now on board with Williams, yeah, he just gets sent straight to the outside wall, spinning end over end, as can happen when you cut across people. So we're in the final stretch of the race, lap 50 of 60. This does end up being the final caution, the final restart. It's green flag running from here, and you can see that Godso and Staroska up front anticipate the green flag and accelerate away before it falls. I'm still waiting behind, not accelerating yet. This was my mistake for not knowing that you should follow the leader after the pace car comes in. So I accelerate right when the green flag drops, and now there's no chance of catching up to the 2 up front. So I am somewhat by myself at a restart, but of course, with slipstream, this doesn't last long. As Bordeaux comes up behind me, preparing to take the inside line into turn 2, I'm going to let him have it. I've learned by this point I don't have a good line through this turn, so I'm not worrying about fighting him here, trying to see what I can do to turn 1 instead. I try to get a run at him on the inside into turn 1, but I should have sat behind him for longer and taken more slipstream. So as we come into turn 1, I am not ahead at all, not far enough ahead to try and take a better line. My tire advantage is gone at this stage. He takes more space to the corner and he can run a better line. He runs fully past down the back straight, and you can see even with slipstream, he's pulling away. And at this point of the race, I look down on my wheel and I see that I'm still carrying several gallons of fuel, despite this being the final stretch, so I may well be heavier than the other cars around me. When I pitted and took fuel, I don't think I accounted for how many more cautions there might be. And also my crew chief application accounts for a certain margin of extra fuel that I might need, so that I'm not left without fuel at the end of the race if I end up using a little more. But I think that applies more to road races. Maybe for these oval races I don't need to build that margin in. So for now, just holding station behind the leading 3, hoping that they'll slow each other down and I can get close enough to pick up slipstream. But really the damage is done from me not knowing the rules and not accelerating away at the start. Ultimately, that's my mistake, costing me the opportunity to battle for the win, so definitely another important lesson learned there, but it is a simple lesson to learn and one that could make a big difference coming into future races. cutting now to lap 53, battling with Thompson, who is a lap down as we run side by side through turn 2. And we prepare to run basically side by side coming down the main straight. But again, I don't use all the space that's available to me. I take a constricted line, which gives him the inside coming into turn 1. So doing what I can to stay with him, taking a wider racing line through turn 1, hoping to get a better exit down the back straight, which I do manage to get at least. So this brings me ahead coming into turn 2. But at this stage, another mistake from me. My tires are getting old. I run quite wide through turn 2, have to get majorly out of the throttle, giving up the position that I just gained back. So you can see from my onboard view, this is exactly what I was seeing as I was racing. The outside wall starting to approach pretty rapidly. So not a good line through that corner on those tires, and with some amount of dirty air from the cars in front as well, causing me to push wide. So lap 57, 3 laps to go. One last battle with Obenauer ahead for old time's sakes. We've been battling since the start of this race, and things are shaping up nicely for us to do it again to the end. We've fallen back from being the leading pair as we were before, now running 4th and 5th, but the racing is just as close as it has been all afternoon. Again, a good battle between the two of us, neither of us leaving too much room coming into corners. We run quite close together through turn 1, and continuing down the back straight as well, running basically nose to tail. I'm running slightly to one side here, and that's probably an instinct from road racing that doesn't really apply on oval. We're not really jumping on the brakes, so there's not as much danger of going straight into the back of him. But I'm just not able to run how I should through turn 2, whether it's tires or just taking a bad line through there. Turn 2 really seeming to be my Achilles heel on this track. And coming on to the final lap, lap 60 of 60, I try to take slipstream from Obenauer until the last possible moment to get a run at him to the line, probably jutting out too wide behind him, losing too much speed, and he remains ahead. So as we prepare to cross the line now, it is P5, 5th place in this race, coming across the line just 0.07 of a second between the two of us. So a very close finish there. Here's my onboard view at the end of the race. You can see trying to use his slipstream and staying behind until we're about to collide, basically, then pulling out wide, trying to hang just on his outside coming through the corner, hoping that the extra speed I took into the turn will be enough to carry me through ahead on the exit, coming very close to him on the exit, but in the end, not quite getting the job done, taking home a 5th place finish from a 3rd place start. So Godso takes the win from Starostka and McCarthy. It's quite a good first race overall, considering it ended in catastrophe for so many others, even with 2 free fast repairs for every driver in the race, and that's especially for this race. In the end, only 6 of us finishing on the lead lap, myself 5th with DuPont rounding out the lead lap finishers. So from the perspective of trying to learn from this race, it's rather disappointing in that I'm still not quite sure where I would really be finishing on a full grid. But at the end of the day, the championship points table doesn't really care if you're actually really good enough to start 3rd and finish 5th, just that you did. So a good result when I certainly was not expecting this much, let alone to lead 11 laps of the race, with only Obenauer leading more laps, but at the same time plenty of mistakes to iron out before the next oval race. So an action-packed first race overall and an exciting new series here at Apollo Racing Club. Everyone in this league in particular seems to be taking the racing much more seriously than themselves, being very welcoming here on the iRacing side, and I really have to commend Andrew and Matt, the 2 league founders, for putting together a championship that seems like it's going to be a lot of fun, and certainly for today starting out that way. So next up for us is Laguna Seca. I'd like to try and stream that race if I can to get a setup that I'm happy with, but for today, thanks so much for joining me on this race. I enjoyed a lot, and hopefully you did too. Thanks, and goodbye.